What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings postcast, breaking down the 20-17 loss the Vikings suffered at home in their classic uniforms to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, honoring the classic Vikings in two ways. One, by outgaining their opponent by over 100 yards and finding a way to lose, and two, by playing really bad against the Bucs. That is a disappointing loss. That it feels like there were so many moments where if you just overturn one or two things and the Vikings could just stay out of their own way, they should have been able to take that one. But alas, give the ball up 3 times, key penalties at key moments. That's going to be what happens. That's the headline for me. But what about you guys? Sam, what is the headline of this game for you?
Yeah, uncomplimentary football. You strive to have a 3-phase effort. And in the first half, when the defense was completely shutting down Baker Mayfield, made him look unbelievably mediocre, the offense couldn't take advantage. Ed Ingram's limbs get in the way again, knock the ball out of Cousins' hands. You've got an interception at the goal line. So you feel, I think, pretty demoralized being tied at halftime. It was 10-3. That might have felt okay, but then the late touchdown inside of 2 minutes. And it felt like 2021 all over again with the 2-minute collapse. And then special teams, with the penalty on Jay Ward that opened the door for a Bucs touchdown. And then Najee Thompson misses a tackle down the stretch that allows him to return it 20 yards. All 3 phases had their moments where they couldn't sync up in this one. And it's a terrible, 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 terrible loss with what you have coming up on the schedule. It doesn't look pretty now with Philly in 4 days.
Ron, what about you? What's your major headline takeaway from this game? This was the game where blank.
Yeah, this is the game where Kirk Cousins throwing for 344 yards. You would have assumed it would have been fireworks, electric. It seemed, to be here at the stadium, it seemed pretty mundane. It seemed pretty lackluster. Like there were moments, the Justin Jefferson catches, the Jordan Addison touchdown, but then they were so far and few between, you kind of forgot you were in a football game. Like the crowd was sitting on their hands for a lot of the game until the defense got into those third down situations. So it just didn't have the feel of an opening day game. I don't know if it's so much build up to the season, so much of the 13-4 last year where fans were coming expecting to see a blowout victory. I think they forgot they were in a football game. It seemed like there were times where the offense just was real stagnant in some of the play calls and some of the routes. You see guys in the same position. You see Justin Jefferson run a hitch where I think Jordan Addison ran a flat route. You're like, wait, that doesn't go together. So there were a lot of little things for me that I feel like in this offense has to get better. And yeah, you're right. 4 days rest going into Philly. The one thing is they didn't get beat up too bad by the Bucs. So physically they should be better, but they're not going to have Garrett Bradbury. I'm guessing that back is not going to be ready for Thursday night. Austin Schlottman, honestly, you didn't notice he was in there, which is great. Like he wasn't getting bullied or beat up, but the Philly defensive line is way better than this Bucs defensive line.
I think of all the things that bug me about this game, and there's a lot of things that bug me about this game. At the very end, the drive at the end where they basically ran the clock out with like 4 minutes to go and ate up all the Vikings timeouts as well. One team was still being physical and the other one wasn't. And that ended the game. You saw, Rachaad White get hit at the line of scrimmage and fight, carrying 4 Vikings for 3-4 yards, just enough to set up a manageable third down. That can't happen in the end of a game, especially when the second half was, eaten up. You had one drive in the third quarter as a defense, 117 play drive, and then 116 play drive on the other side. So you can't say you were fatigued, right? They said on the broadcast, they talked about how week 1 conditioning is the hardest part, but I don't know. I think you just kind of got out muscled at the end there. As much as we can say, yeah, they outgained them and it was just penalties and turnovers and we just got to clean up the stuff. Don't get out muscled at the end too. Get the ball back. Give yourself a chance.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the wrong end of a Baker Mayfield stiff arm. If I'm not mistaken, didn't he try to stiff arm someone when he played for the Browns here the last time as well? Baker's just feeling himself, I guess, against the Vikings in this building.
Yeah.
But
Baker's house.
And I hate to say it, but it seemed like the Vikings rotated pretty liberally on defense too. They should have had fresh legs. They played almost everybody who was eligible on that side of the ball throughout the game. But in the second half, the third downs got a lot more manageable because the Bucs were way more efficient. I think they started 0 of 6 on third down and finished 6 of 11. Toward the end, they had some conversions that were, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 4, and then the killer, the 3rd and 10 completion at the very end. If that's not converted, then we might be looking at a Vikings last second miracle victory. But alas, they got pushed around a little bit in the second half, and the Bucs moved the ball in the fourth quarter, and the Vikings really went backwards on 2 drives and couldn't get a first down on their final 2 possessions. Ron?
Yeah, with you think about the time of possession, it was deadlocked. Both teams had the ball for 30 minutes. One team ran the ball better than the other. One team passed the ball better than the other, and it was clear and cut. The problem is, like you said, I think Luke's right at the end, the physicality. This was a Bucs team that from the start set the tone with Antoine Winfield, some big hits, some big sacks on Kirk Cousins. And then at the end of the game, again, being able to run the clock out, that 4-minute offense, where the Vikings offense ran the ball, 41 yards, I think was the total yards rushing. So when that happens, like you could say, okay, Dalvin Cook's gone. You could say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, that offensive line has to be more physical. There were times where the defensive line was pushing into, the tight end screen they tried to run with T.J. Hockenson. You see Ezra Cleveland just kind of get thrown out of the way, and he blew up T.J. Hockenson. If he holds that block a little longer, maybe T.J. Hockenson makes that first guy miss, and then he gets out the gate to the side because there was nobody else out to the left if he keeps his guy, and Ezra Cleveland just didn't do it. And then in the clip after T.J. Hockenson is hit, you see Ezra Cleveland running the wrong way as if he had just gotten told to go to his bedroom.
Yeah.
And so it's telling. When you see the offensive line do that, the Ed Ingram hitting Kirk Cousins, that's just nerves. That's just trying to get to a spot too soon. You see the big blow up in the backfield. I think Alexander Madison got hit in the backfield. Vita Vea just blows through the defensive or the offensive line. It went both ways. Their defensive line was more physical than our offensive line, and then their offensive line at the end just kept that intensity going where it felt like the Vikings, again, I think we were spoiled. I think we were spoiled last year by these 13-4 last-minute victories where maybe this team had a little bit of we got the fairy dust. It's going to work. We're going to get this done in the end. And it takes more than fairy dust. You got to be able to stop a team from running the clock out at the end of a game.
Yeah, to get that fairy dust, to get those close games, you have to be able to make that stop and get the ball back. And for as aggressive as this Brian Flores defense is, they were punished at the end there. And that's going to kind of be the world that we live in. But I'm curious, this was sort of the unveiling of the full-throated Brian Flores defense, not holding anything back, not the vanilla preseason version. What did you guys think of what he was doing schematically and the pressure it was able to generate and kind of how that played out over the course of the game?
Yeah, first half, it was really enjoyable to watch. I think that he was really going full Flores. 7 guys at the line, 8 guys at the line, dropping in coverage, confusing the Bucs. Benton Whitley uncovered off the edge, leaping over Baker Mayfield. Just good stuff was happening, and it was helping the secondary because they had so much pressure, and Baker looked flustered. And I was holding back from tweeting snarky stuff about Baker because I knew it could change, but he looked awful. Everyone looked awful. And then I think Flores, and give the Bucs credit, they adjusted. Baker knew where to go with the football facing blitz, and I think Flores dialed it back and kind of got caught a little bit in no man's land, not knowing, okay, am I going to go full-fledged zero blitz here? Am I going to show the 7, the 8? Because he did soften up the looks once the Bucs beat them a couple times, and you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. And it seemed like in the second half, he didn't really know to put the pedal down or to ease up all the way. So I liked it the first half, what I saw, but you got to have an answer to adjust when teams start having those hots, to beat the blitz when you show it.
Yeah, I'd say for Brian Flores, he did a good job. I do agree. 63 yards passing for Baker Mayfield. Second half, he finished with 173, so a little bit better. But this is the thing I noticed in the second half, and I got to give credit to Tom Moore. Tom Moore, who is the offensive executive assistant for the Buccaneers. He's been around football as long as forever. He was there when I was born. That's how old Tom Moore is. He was at the hospital or, was in the Steelers facility when I was born. My dad, he tells me that story all the time about my dad brought me back, after I was born and I was 11 pounds. But Tom Moore, seeing him walk around the field, he has something that a lot of offensive coordinators don't. He was able to learn from Peyton Manning, but also help Peyton Manning as well. And what he did with Baker Mayfield was not even close to Peyton Manning. But what he did do was give him the ability to get to the line of scrimmage. You saw it a couple of times when Harrison Smith walked up, and I forgot the other person that walked up. He pointed to both of them. I don't know what he said and did, but it forced Harrison Smith to kind of get out of there. And then when Harrison Smith did come, they were ready for him. And so that's the key, is he got him ready in the second half. So maybe it took a half for him to say, hey, I don't really know what Brian Flores is going to do to us. Let's see if we can hold on to this monster, which they did. They went to the half tied up, so it's still 0-0 in their mind. Second half, they said, hey, look, this is what we can help you with, Baker. You just have to trust. So you saw a lot of pointing, a lot of like fake goals like Peyton Manning would do. He'd watch those guys move, and then he'd change the play, and it worked just enough. Like you only have to win by 1, and they won by 3. Like you don't have to blow teams out. And the Buccaneers did exactly what they need to do, which is keep the Vikings close. That offense, everybody was saying how high-powered this offense is. They said, let's just keep it close, and we have a chance to win, which they did.
Yeah, and I want to dive in more to what exactly happened to the offense in the second half, because they had one drive and everything else was pretty catastrophic. So let's dive into that. But before we do so, this Locked On Vikings postcast is brought to you by LinkedIn. You can post your job for the September hiring surge at LinkedIn Jobs. You can just go to linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL and post the job for free. LinkedIn has all kinds of great tools and things like screening questions that can help you pare down a giant stack of resumes and give you something that actually works for you and your company and your unique needs. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn the #1 place to find candidates that work for your job. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Let's dive into what happened on offense here, because the offense for the beginning of the game, they started very slow. I think they had one drive where they even got a first down and they fumbled, and then they had a fumble on a third down and 2 other 3-and-outs. Then they put something together and they drove down the field, touchdown to Addison, drove down the field, field goal, got things going a little bit. But then when things slowed down again at the second half, it seems like we've kind of got the same team as last year, where it was streaky, where you're like, man, that was an abysmal first quarter. That was the worst first quarter we've seen since 1986. And then explosion. And then that was the worst fourth quarter we've seen. 3-and-out with what was the last chance to tie the game up, to lose by 3. So what do you guys think happened over the course of halftime to really shore this offense up and make it completely anemic?
Small sample size on this one. I mean, you applaud them for, was it a 16-play touchdown drive out of the gate? You tie the game up at 17, and then you have 2 3-and-outs. That's it. You had 3 second-half drives. So the 2 3-and-outs, what happened? A 1st and 10, negative yardage, tight end screen to TJ Hawkinson, loss of 3, loss of 4, and then you end up in both instances in a 3rd and 7. The first time, Cousins overthrows Osborne, execution mistake. And then Cousins tries to find Addison. Great breakup by Carlton Davis. It's as simple as that. You got to be more efficient than losing 3 and 4 yards on first down. I don't know if there's much more to it, Ron.
Yeah, I'm looking at these stats. And so the one thing I'm noticing is in the fourth quarter, they had 1 rushing yard. 1. Like you literally can't win games with 1 rushing yard in the fourth quarter. And I think it was 16 rushing yards in the third quarter. And so the Buccaneers figured it out. Like, they're not going to run the ball. They don't have Dalvin Cook. They don't have a homer. Because Dalvin Cook even said this last year. It was like, I think it was the Colts game. Just because we're down doesn't mean we can't run the ball because I'm a home run hitter. I don't know if they feel like Alexander Mattison is even that when it's a tie game. Like, it was very interesting to bring back CJ Ham. You bring in Josh Oliver. You talk about you have 4 tight ends on the roster, and then you don't run the ball. Like, you threw the ball weirdly with C.J. Ham in the game a lot. You threw the ball oddly with some of these weird formations. Just put Jordan Addison in. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm a C.J. Ham fan, but you got to go full out past the bit. Like, you just got to pass it now. Like, if that's what you're going to do it. And that's why I think it went anemic. I think that this, whatever they put together this offseason and said we're going to force it to work, I didn't like it in the first week. Now, this is week 1. The Eagles, I don't think is going to make us feel any better, and that's the sad thing about it. We're going to have to wait till like the Carolina Panthers maybe to be like, oh, okay, I see what this offense should look like. Because right now it's weird. Like, it feels like this is a Kirk Cousins year that should be able to throw for 400 yards a game, but they feel like they're tied to the run a little bit. And so who cares? Like, just throw the, like, Patrick Mahomes rarely runs the ball. So nobody notices that. Maybe stop saying we're going to run the ball and just say, look, Kirk Cousins is great. We're going to throw the ball and let's move on.
And to the point that Sam made earlier in the show, there's a complementary football thing here too, right? Where the Bucs take up half the third quarter with one drive, and then they have another really long drive in the fourth quarter, and then of course they chew things up at the end. Like, somebody make a play, right? That's what I was screaming at my screen. Like, somebody go be the playmaker. But it was a lot of, if they could get rid of the ball, if Baker could get the ball out before the free rusher got there was always somebody open just because of the off coverage thing. And I think you just kind of have to learn how to play off man aggressively when you know that you're kind of defending a blitz and that they're responding to it with quick game. So I guess here's the thing. This is one of those games that it's just deeply deflating, right? Where you come out thinking we were a 13-win team. Nobody believes in us and it's insane. We're going to go show the world. No, you didn't show the world anything. You showed the world that you can turn the ball over a bunch, get a horrible penalty offsides on a field goal attempt that ends up being a 4-point play. That's what you showed the world. But you don't really have time to mourn it because they're going to Philly. They're flying out in like 3 days. So what needs to happen between now and the Philadelphia game that can stop the Vikings from being the first team of the 2023 season to get their own tombstone?
Boy, and you don't really have time to practice much either. I mean, you're going to lick your wounds. You're going to figure out if anybody's hurt. Garrett Bradbury probably not going to play. Cross your fingers on Christian Darrisaw. Take inventory of what happened. Probably going to watch the film tonight and get all your film analysis done and then move forward. There's a lot to like about what you show, your ability to get Justin Jefferson 150 yards. There's a lot to build on there. Can you actually turn this into a silver lining situation where you say, all right, some weird stuff happened. Ed Ingram knocked the ball out of his hands. There was a free runner. Antoine Winfield knocked the ball out. We're not going to have 3 turnovers in the first half again. That was crazy. And say, all right, our offense did show enough that we think we can put points on the board still. I think you just gotta have that mentality that if you're not -3 in the take give, you win this game. Take care of the ball. That's the angle I would take if I were trying to get this team right on a short week.
I don't know what you can do. It is a short week. I mean, I'd say, first of all, throw this film away, like, right away. Just move on. Just get ready for the Eagles. They can actually start watching the Eagles game now. And this was sad. First drive, Eagles, 10 plays, 66 yards. They're in the red zone already on the 9-yard line of New England. So Jalen Hurts is picking up right where he left off. He's about to score a touchdown, most likely. He's got 22-yard pass and 3 for 4. Gainwell has 26 yards rushing on the first drive. So clearly this Philly offense is just what they did. The defense already stopped the Patriots early on too, so they're good. I mean, now again, this is the Patriots. But it's just one of those things where I don't know what you can do. This is the only thing I'd say you could do, really, honestly. You're not going to be able to run the ball, I don't think, on Philadelphia. I think you literally have to go 4 to 5 wides, but it doesn't have to be all receivers. But whether it's Alexander Madison spread out, if it's T.J. Hockenson spread out, you got K.J. Osborne, Justin Jefferson, and Addison in the game. Get them in a situation where they're small and then maybe run the ball. Like, you can still have 6 blockers with your tight end and your running back in the backfield, and then all of a sudden now they're in nickel or dime, and you have a better chance to run the ball versus their 7-man front. Their 7-man front, we already know, is similar to the Jets, going to be one of the best in the NFL this season. So that's, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, I'm looking at what I did well, which is Kirk Cousins threw the ball well. How do I protect him? Maybe I have to shift the motion a little bit more. I got to get him out the pocket a little bit more. But other than that, it wasn't like super like, whoa, these Bucs beat up the offensive line. They kept Kirk Cousins pretty upright for the most part. And Kirk Cousins looked really decent escaping the pocket too. So I think you have to throw the ball. Like, this team needs to be that team. You don't draft a receiver in the first round to have him sit on the sideline.
Yeah, and I think things just need to quicken up a little bit. That's what it seemed like to me, because a lot of those blitzes it was 7-man protection. So you're getting green doggers. That's linebackers that are assigned to a guy that is blocking and say, okay, if you're blocking, I'm blitzing. That's going to take a while to read out and develop. And those were the guys getting hits on Kirk Cousins. Whether that's routes developing faster, Cousins going through reads faster, just sort of quicker execution. I think if some of that offensive stuff goes just a little faster and tightens up a little bit, that will do a lot against the pressure. Because I agree. The offensive line in pass pro, when it was just, can they block the guy, did well. It was when you ended up with blitzers, it was skill players, it was other guys that ended up having that causing a lot more of those problems. But they don't get a lot of time to sit and dwell and think on it. It's kind of like going to there was a similar situation. It was the New England game last year after they laid an egg against Dallas and got blown out. They didn't have any time to think about it, and they went and played well against New England. So let's see if they can do the same thing against Philadelphia. You can find these postcasts on the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel, or if you're an audio listener, you can find them on the Locked On Vikings feed. We'll be here doing these after every single game, rain, snow, or shine. So I hope you guys tune in. Come to the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel right at 000, and you can find me and Sam Ekstrom and Ron Johnson breaking down the game. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you on Thursday. We'll see you in just a few days. So don't fall asleep on them. It's a long season. A lot of games left to go. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good one.